So Leo is kind of a character that doesn't need an introduction in Strive. He's definitely been one of the most successful characters in the history of this game, and there's a lot of reasons why, but one of the first things a lot of people will point to is Backturn stance, right? Backturn stance allows him to have access to high-low mix-ups, meterless, which is not that common in Strive, right? But I think that a lot of people don't really understand all the options that they have, or maybe some stuff that they shouldn't be doing to counterplay Leo in Backturn stance, because despite it sounding completely broken like I just said, the stance is actually designed around being able to interact with it. So let's get into it. Starting off, when Leo is in the stance, he's not able to block, and he is not able to jump. His normal step dash, which he can block during, is replaced with a 17 frame, like fixed duration step dash, during which he is completely inactionable. But in exchange, this dash can cross through your opponent like this, right? Another thing important to note about his dash is that the backdash version of this is actually not throw involve, unlike every other backdash in the game. So getting into like, you know, his buttons in the stance, the most important one is probably Backturn K, right? Is 5 frame low, and it is +3. And if Leo decides to cancel it and exit his stance, it's 0. Like, pretty important rule of stance is that Leo is actually not ever able to cancel a stance move into itself. So even though Leo players will do Backturn K into itself like that, right? It's actually always going to be at least a 2 frame gap, because this is a +3 move into a 5 frame move, right? Which means your opponent is able to backdash it if the Leo player doesn't, you know, do anything to try and stop him from that. So let's make him crouch block. Like that, see? Also important is that it is attack level 1, which means it has 11 frames of block stun. So there is a 7 frame gap between K and H, which is the overhead. So it's very easy to mash on, right? So moving on, we're going a little bit out of order here. Backturn S. This move is -6 normally, +5 on stance cancel. And it is 6 frames, 6 active. So this is the backdash catcher, right? If you are in range of this move, unless you play heavy, you are not able to backdash it, which is very, very important. It is for sure his best starter. It actually will stagger your opponent on counter hit, allowing Leo to get even better combos. They can do some stuff like that, right? And I don't play Leo, right? But the other stuff, right? But it has 2 downsides. Number 1, he can only cancel into Backturn H or Backturn D. And number 2, even though I said it is the backdash catcher, if you FD him out enough, then even Backturn S is able to be backdashed, right? So even though the move is active enough to catch backdash, based on spacing, it is able to lose. If I'm back here, it'll whiff. So next up is Backturn P. Backturn P is 7 frames, and like a 6P, it will activate upper body invul, but different from a 6P, which will activate full upper body invul on between frames 3 and 5, depending on character, right? This move will activate upper body invul on frame 1, which makes Leo in Backturn stance effectively impossible to jump in on. You can cancel into every other stance move, so like this, right? And this is pretty important to FD so that the following Backturn K whiffs, because otherwise he can do this stuff, right? And you need to make sure you're out of range of this move, like that. Okay? Generally, in Leo's strings, Backturn P is not a super important string filler, but it's just like for his neutral, and like if you escape the backturn block string by jumping, this is there to discourage you. It also can beat mid pokes like random spar slash and stuff like that, right? So finally, for normals, we have Backturn H. This is an 18 frame overhead. It is -6 and +5 if you stance cancel. It is not cancelable into any other stance move except for the parry, and it is level 3, just like Backturn S. It is backdashable, and backdashing it with a standard backdash will leave you +6. -6, right? So Leo's punish for it is actually pretty bad, but a lot of other characters are going to get much better punishes. So for example, I play Zatsu, right? I'm getting 2k 2d into set play. So it's really important to lab what your character can do. Also, the whole thing about backdashing it, leaving you +6, is assuming that your character has a standard 5 frame invul, 20 frame recovery backdash. So if you play Happy Chaos, for example, you're going to be +8 instead of +6. And if you play Nago, for example, you're only going to be +3, so you actually won't get a punish. For special moves, we have his command grab, which is 30 frames and not throw invul. It's for the purposes of this guide, we'll say it doesn't really have that much of a use, and you shouldn't worry about it too much. It's pretty easy to see or hear coming. It has a pretty loud sound cue, so listen for here. If you get hit by this, the Leo player will start feeling themselves.
I'm ballsy.
So it is important not to get hit by it, just because the mental damage is really high. But yeah, other than that, it's not too relevant. A special move in stance that is super relevant is his Guard Crush. It is 29 frames. You will die if you get hit by it, and it is plus 21. And it being plus 21 means that it is a 50-50 between walk up Backturn K or Backturn H, and you are not able to YRC it. So because of that, you really need to backdash this move. It has 3-frame active, so it isn't the hardest thing in the world to backdash, but it's still really important to do so. And if you do, you get a punish on it, similar to Backturn H, right? And backdashing it will leave you, I believe, plus 16 on a standard backdash, right? So if you have a different backdash, just add or subtract however much recovery there is. The one catch is that if Leo has meter, he can actually read you backdashing and then RC it early to punish your backdash. So if Leo has meter, it's better to mash this on reaction with a 5-frame button, which is a 23-frame reaction if you don't want him to trade, so it's pretty hard, but it's like, you can't let him get away with it, you know what I mean? Because if not, this situation is like death. You really cannot block this move. I can't stress that enough. So if we get into like, what do we do about this, right? I have a couple big rules. Rule number 1, never jump. Everything you do will lose to this button. Just trust me. Like, if you play a character that's an exception, like Happy Chaos jumping, or like, I don't know, Ram doing ID back jump S, then good for you. But as a starting point, never jump. This is too good. Rule 2 is always FD. So, why always FD, right? If you FD 2 Backturn Ks, the third one will always whiff. So what that means is that there is no high-low mix-up now. The only way he can hit you with something that isn't a mid here is either by walking up and doing it again, or dash canceling, which has a huge gap, or by canceling this into H, which is a 7-frame gap, as we've gone over, right? And what that means is that you're also more able to backdash his stuff here, right? Let's put him on backdash again. Let's say you're at this spacing, because if I do it like this, he'll just backdash like that, right? So let's put myself at the spacing as if I blocked the first one, right? If I do this, then to frame trap him mashing on Backturn H, I would need to frame trap with S, right? But if I'm frame trapping with S there, then he's able to backdash it. And the way I catch that backdash is by doing H, and that doesn't even work at all distances, as you can see, right? So Leo actually does have to take like a good amount of risk here, but don't always try backdashing that at home, you know what I mean? So it's important to represent backdash both between the first and second Backturn K, like so, and between the second Backturn K and whatever he decides to do after, so like this spacing into this. So mixing it up between these after you have started FDing is crucial, because if you are just guessing high or low block, right? Leo is plus after Backturn H, so, you know, you're not really getting anywhere, you know what I mean? He's just allowed to continue his offense. So it's just important to replace yourself guessing high or low with options that make his string more annoying to do, or that lead to you hitting him rather than him just being plus when you're right. My third biggest rule is never ever respect stance cancel throw. So his stance cancel is 11 frames, throw is 2 frames. You are not reacting to this, right? But the thing is, this is going to be meaty after a lot of his knockdowns, or as meaty as a throw can get, right? And the typical way that you should beat throws in Guilty Gear Strive is by jumping, and you cannot jump against Backturn stance. So basically, my mindset against this is I'm going to, if I'm already deciding to mash, then the mash will beat it, and if I'm deciding to backdash, then the backdash will beat it. Giving stance cancel throw your respect is really bad, even though it's a little intuitive, because his throw will just restart the Oki. Sometimes it'll actually be worse than the situation you're in before. But you just need to cycle your options against Backturn K and H, and then just hope that they beat throw. Because if you try to specifically target throw, you will actually end up losing to a bunch of other stuff. So let's talk about what you should do on block. We've already gone over a little bit between what you do when you block Backturn K, right? With FDing and backdashing, and then mashing on this, right? So let's talk about Backturn S. Backturn S into H versus Backturn S stance cancel 2K is a 50-50, but both of them will lose to backdash, right? So what Leo players will do is they will slightly delay the overhead to hit your backdash. So what I like to do in response is do a slightly delayed backdash. So, or depending on the delay timing, you can mash. So that's me doing immediate backdash, right? Show it doesn't work. But if you delay your backdash properly, you still get out of it. Also, it is easier to backdash the active frames on Backturn H the further away you are. So again, rule number 1 is always hold FD. It's the way I see it, when I get knocked down by Leo, it's a meter tax, right? You should always give it up. So now let's go over blocking Backturn H. Like we said, Leo Backturn H is +5 on stance cancel, right? And what that means is he has the ability to do dash 2K, which is going to be a 3-frame gap, because dash 2K is 8 frames. So he will frame trap your 5-frame mash. So let's show that off. He is knocking me down, and he's going to do his Backturn H, and I'm trying to mash, and that's frame trapping me, right? So against Backturn H, you can try to backdash this if you FD'd it. So let's show that. Right? To beat that, he will have to dash further with dash 2K, which means you'll be able to mash on it. But generally, it is good to respect after blocking Backturn H, unless you have a 4-frame jab. If you're Biken or Mei or something like that, right? It is very, very good to just mash your 4-frame button like an idiot after blocking Backturn H into stance cancel. So now let's go over what types of Oki Leo has. You've already seen a little bit of it with flash kick knockdown there. So let me just explain it real quick. Of a flash kick knockdown, he is able to meaty Backturn K and Backturn S, but not Backturn H, right? So I'll try to mash on K right now. Right? The thing is, Backturn H is actually so much slower that you can OS between the two of them. So I'm going to do a pretty late button here. It's still winning, right? And what that means is I'm going to try and hit the button at the same timing here on this knockdown. I hit the button basically when I'm in block stun of the first Backturn K, which is called fuzzy mashing. So that way, you never let them get away with flash kick into raw Backturn H. So moving on, his best type of Oki is throw Oki. Throw Oki is a 3-way mix-up between same side low, same side high, and cross-up low. I'll show you what that looks like. So all of these are options you are not able to mash on, and you just kind of need to guess. But what I like doing is, for the overhead, I actually like trying to backdash instead of guessing high on this meaty Backturn H, which would make a good amount of sense, right? Yeah. So you have the option of just blocking high like that, right? But instead, what you can do is backdash it. And this means that the Leo player will always feel like they're taking a risk by meeting you with their overhead, which is +5, which is super favorable, because otherwise they're just going to do it every time because, you know, as we said, it's +5. So it's pretty important to represent that. The issue with backdashing is that if you try to backdash the low, Leo is actually able to option select it. So if you backdash the low, Leo will actually recover from the first low fast enough to punish your backdash. The way I see it, you're effectively just guessing high-low the same way you would otherwise by blocking, because if he goes low, then you're getting hit, and if he goes high, then you're fine, right? The only difference is that if he goes high and you're right, you actually get to hit him this time. The other really important thing to represent with Leo's throw Oki is Gold Burst. Normally, I think Gold Bursting is pretty bad in Strive, but remember, Leo is unable to block. So if he tries to meaty any kind of mix-up, or even like get in your face and then shimmy throw, this is winning, right? And because it's from a throw knockdown, you don't even need to time your Gold Burst, right? You can actually just mash it, and then it'll just come out. It'll get buffered, basically, right? So the next knockdown we're going to talk about is run through on hit, or 236H, or Dwight, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, right? Run through, right? It hits you. And he is actually plus enough to meaty this Backturn H. You're not able to mash on it, see? But same rules for before apply. where you can backdash it. And he is also obviously able to meet the low here. But what is interesting is that he is actually slightly further away than he is off of other types of knockdowns, so FDing him is actually even more effective here. And if he knocks you down with the pillar, so this, it is a very similar knockdown to the run-through on hit. So let's talk about other ways that Leo can enter stance now. A pretty common one as of the patch is doing fast RC into run-through. So if Leo does any level 3 attack and then does run-through or Zwite or whatever like that, this will be a 1-frame gap. So I'm going to mash throw. I can't throw it, right? What options do we have, right? Option number 1 is backdash it, right? And if he does backturn K after it instinctively, it'll whiff, and you can try to backdash again and get out, or maybe challenge. But if you do backdash it and he doesn't press a button, he is slightly plus, so be careful of that. Your other option, which is better but harder, is to instant block it. And if you instant block it and throw, he is unable to do anything, which is great, right? Because remember, his backdash in backturn stance is not throw invul. So he is actually just checkmated here. Unless he gold burst or supers, I guess. But this actually is slightly different from Leo's normal run-through. He's doing run-through into backdash here, right? So if I instant block it... So as you see, I instant block it and he is able to backdash, right? So the options that you need to represent here are mash to hit his backdash on the instant block. So as you can see, I mashed and then it hit his backdash, right? But because run through is +2, if he just hits backturn K, then you're going to get smoked, right? So Leo is going to try and do a mix between backdash and backturn K to beat your throw and your mash, and you just need to guess with him. So that's just a pretty brief overview of Leo's backturn stance. Some stuff that you should do against it. Maybe some stuff he can do to beat it if you're a Leo player, and some ways you can get into it. If you have any questions or if I'm forgetting anything, let me know in the comments, and let me know if you want to see defensive guides for other characters in the future. Thanks for watching.